Town Hall. My name is Colby. I am the Director of Communications for Louisiana Blue Team. We are so excited to have you guys here. I know we have a few of our board members here as well. And before we get too deep into today's Town Hall, all of our board members also have a chance to say hi and introduce who they are, what their role is, and if they are an elected official, to let you guys know what they're where they were elected to.
I'll start. I'm Alana Oldham. I'm the secretary on the board of Louisiana Blue Team. So many of you probably would have talked to me. I probably would have been the person sending you an email, welcoming you to Louisiana Blue Team and sending you your URL and all that good stuff. So I'm also sort of in the IT capacity doing all the web and all that stuff. And unfortunately, I lost my DSCC race and I am not an elected official.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bobby Darrow. I fortunately won my DSC seat for 6B, mostly because of Alana's help. She was my campaign manager. Thank you so much, Alana. And I am on the board of Louisiana Blue Team and ready to work together as a team. Thank you.
Hey, everyone. I'm Miranda Burbridge. I'm coming to you from Slidell. I am a board member, not an elected official because I also lost my DSCC race, but I'm repping for Southeast Louisiana on our board. So it's a pleasure to meet you all if I haven't met you already.
Our chair is Dr. LT Pierre. Everybody's called her LT, but she is our chair. She is leading the charge with LA Blue Team and all the great initiatives that we have going on. For those who are new to Google Meet, there is a little hand icon at the bottom of your screen. This is a town hall, so we want to hear your feedback. We want to have a chance for you guys to give us your voice. That's all. That's what Louisiana Blue Team is all about. We're an activism group. We're here to inspire Democratic voters across the state to share their voice, to share their passion and what they are excited about, and really what direction they want to see the Louisiana Democratic Party head in. Because we have the numbers, we have the votes, we just really got to get active and get everybody excited about politics again, excited about change, positive change. I know Louisiana Blue Team is full of candidates who ran in this most recent DSCC and DPEC race. First and foremost, I want to say thank you guys. Thank you all for stepping up to the plate and running. I know that was not easy. I ran for DPEC here in East Baton Rouge. I did not win, but another progressive did. So overall, it is a win for everybody because we got another progressive in office. But again, it is difficult and it is a hard journey. It's a very time-consuming, both emotionally and mentally. But thank you guys for running. Thank you for stepping up for those who did. I saw that Kathy Hurst just joined. Kathy is a board member as well, and let's have her introduce herself real quick.
Hey, I was lost in phone calls and online. Anyway, I'm Kathy Hurst. I am the DSCC member for 43A. I'm an attorney in Lafayette, and I'm running to be the parliamentarian of the Democratic Party because the parliamentarian we have right now has created a lot of disorder and has created a lot of changes in our bylaws that have created a lot of disunity and disorder that need to be fixed.
Thank you, Kathy. And Kathy kind of helped us segue into our next part, which we're going to talk about the upcoming DSCC Executive Committee elections, kind of really what our big next initiative is going on right now. But we do want to clarify one thing first before we move into our next topic. I know a lot of everyone on here has been a Louisiana Blue Team member and is also was a Blue Reboot candidate as well for that progressive coalition. So me and Kathy would like to take the time to kind of tell you the difference between the two coalitions, what each of their roles were in the DSCC DPEC race, and then what our roles are now going forward post-election. So I'm going to let Kathy take the lead on that one.
Okay, so Blue Reboot was started in January of 2023 Actually, I started the process of recruiting people, then brought other people in, and then handed it off. I say handed it off to 2 seasoned professionals, but I was still involved almost on a daily basis for the last year and 3 months. So I ask everybody's forgiveness if I'm a little tired, because I've been going at this for a long time. But the basic premise of Blue Reboot was that we needed new leadership and that we needed to elect a new chair. And we did our best, everybody involved in that, because it was a lot of people involved in it. We did our best to recruit as many progressives as possible. And we wanted, the ideal would have been progressives in every district. Some of them really didn't identify as progressive, but they wanted a change. And became the Blue Reboot candidates. Now, Louisiana Blue Team, on the other hand, is exclusively for progressives and has a specific vetting process to determine that. Issues like abortion rights, LGBTQ rights, racial equality, that if they're not aligned with those 3 issues, then they're not a member of Louisiana Blue Team. And that's been a very effective process to vet. And now there's a lot of overlapping, of course, in terms of the people. And there's also a lot of overlapping in the values, and people want to progress the party forward. So it's not, it's not intended to be a competition, but Blue Reboot was originally intended to go through the election process to get us a new executive committee. And then Louisiana Blue Team is, working to go way beyond that.
Thank you, Kathy. Yeah, thank you for giving the history about it too for Blue Reboot and Louisiana Blue Team. And now that post-election, Louisiana Blue Team is now going to be the outward-facing progressive coalition. So, like Kathy said, we were designed from the beginning to go past the election, and so now we're going to be focusing on voter activism, getting voters excited again. Our big push is going to be just informing voters about the various local, state, and federal elections that's happening around the state. I know we have a few candidates in here now that's kind of preparing for not just the internal elections that were about to take place, but federal elections coming up. And one of the most empowering tools that we have as progressives is information, is getting that information to the public and letting them know what's happening around them. I see Sadie just raised her hand. I'll get to you in just one moment. I know you're one of our candidates coming up soon. So, and the Blue Reboot, they're kind of, that outward facing has ended, and now they'll be focusing strictly on the DSCC reform, that the DSCC candidates and DPEC, but mainly DSCC, focusing on getting the internal party politics and caucus formed, organized, and have a strong influence in it. So if anyone has any questions, we can take this time real quick to help kind of clear the air on everything. And Sadie, the floor is yours now.
Thank you so much. I actually just wanted to make a request about the inclusion of the education portion, because Colby, I completely agree. I think the way for us to be able to really get voters engaged is education about who's running and what they're running on, how to find out that information. But I also think that if I can just maybe put this food for thought out there, there's also a lot of people that don't understand the functionality of our government. And I'll give a for example. So, For example, we recently had a bill introduced in committee for enshrining the right to birth control and emergency contraception. And I had folks reaching out to me, letting me know that they had contacted their representatives, but their representatives weren't on the committee. What would have been more important and what would have made more of an impact is if they would have had reached out to the committee rather than the representative that's not on the committee. If it were going to a full vote, that's when you want to contact your representative and let them know. So I'm just using that for an example because I think that there's a lot of people that want to get engaged and are trying to. They just don't know the most effective ways to get engaged. So that's just my little food for thought.
Thank you, Sadie, and I 100% agree with you on that. Louisiana government system is confusing. I'm still learning it because there are so many twists and turns, committees, subcommittees. Does this bill make it to the floor for even an open discussion? So that is such a fundamental, I think, food for thought there. And I think it kind of ties into one of our topics that we're going to talk about tonight. And since you brought it up, I'll go ahead and kind of jump into that before we move into the DSCC elections. It's one of the tools that we'll be using as Louisiana Blue Team is a podcast called Louisiana Blue Team Hits the Road, where we're going to travel all across Louisiana talking to progressive candidates about what their election is, when's it coming up, but also talk about government in general. And so I would love to probably, if anyone has a contact with a Louisiana legislator, we could probably do a Louisiana Blue Team Hits the Road with a Louisiana legislator and have them talk about the process, about how a bill originates in Louisiana's legislature and then processes through and eventually makes it to law at a governor's desk. So I would love, if anyone has a contact or thinks we have a connection, type it in the chat here on the link. It should be on the right side of the page. Type it in there and it'll be saved because we're recording and transcribing this. So perfect. And if anyone has any candidates also, please reach out to me so we can go ahead and get them on the podcast too. All right. Perfect. All right. Alana, I see we got one in there already. Fantastic. All right. So if anyone doesn't have any questions about the difference between Blue Reboot or LA Blue Team, we're going to move on to the DSCC race. All right. So the biggest upcoming election right now that's like nearest to us is next Saturday, April 13th, is the DSCC Executive Committee election, where the DSCC members will be electing our party's chair and the executive council or committee. So like vice chairs and so on and so forth down. That is a public meeting. So we are encouraging all of Louisiana Blue Team, for those who are able to make it, come down to Baton Rouge or up to Baton Rouge, wherever you're at in the state, and let's show them that we are united, progressive caucus, voting bloc. We're here as a unit. But also, so we can be informed too, because again, education, we want to know what's happening. Since it is a DSCC internal vote, we don't have a direct vote in it, but we know our representatives. We know our DSCC members like Bobby and Kathy. And we can lobby, we can call, and we can get our voice out to them that way. And tonight, we do have two of the executive committee candidates on our call tonight. This is going to be a Q&A session later on, like in a few minutes we'll do that. Paige Gleason, she is running for a DSCC executive committee secretary position. And I'm not going to steal her thunder at all. She has an extensive background in the Democratic Party. So I'll let her explain all that to you guys and give her a chance to do Q&As with you. And then Kathy Hurst, who she's already kind of mentioned, she is running for parliamentarian with her legal background and makes an excellent candidate. These two individuals have also formally been endorsed by Louisiana Blue Team. And we will have, hopefully, but not by some beginning of next week, we'll have more endorsements to come, since the election has been announced yesterday. That is for Saturday. So we have a very short window here, but we are moving fast and efficiently and smartly. The location and time of the election for April 13th, to my knowledge, it has still not been determined yet.
It's at 2:30, but the location hasn't been announced yet. I don't know why, but
All right, 2:30 p.m.
they're usually in the morning, so I don't know why it's at 2:30, but here we are. It's at 2:30. So
Okay. For everyone, we will be sharing that location with you guys on our Facebook page, and we'll send out an email blast. Alana will assist with that part, so that you guys will be in the know about it when it's coming up. All right. Well, at this time, I'm going to get the floor over to Paige and Kathy to introduce themselves about their position and to give our members a chance to ask them some questions. And just before we get started, please just remember to be respectful. Keep your questions focused on what their position is. So we got secretary and we got parliamentarian. So make sure our questions are kind of precise with that. And we'll try to give everybody about a 2-minute response to help keep the flow of things. All righty. So Paige or Kathy, go ahead and remember to raise your hand.
Paige, you want to go first?
Sure, I'm happy to if you'd like me to.
Okay, sure.
Hi, everybody. My name is Paige Gleason, and I am running for the Secretary of DSCC. And just a little bit about myself. I am not a native New Orleanian. However, New Orleans stole my heart my first time coming here, and I worked very hard to make the stars align so that I could be here full time, which I have been since 2017. Before that, however, I was in Georgia, and one of the things that I think I'll be most proud of for the rest of my life is being one of the architects of the blue wave that has come to Georgia. I spent many, many years involved in many different aspects of the Democratic Party, of progressive politics, of all of that work. And, I started out with the Young Democrats of Atlanta. I ran the Young Democrats of Georgia. I ran my county Democratic Party, the OPDEC, the DPEC equivalent there for 15 years. I served on the state committee of the Democratic Party of Georgia for over 10 years. And I was the youngest person elected to the DNC from Georgia and served on that body for 8 years. And so I feel that in all of my experience, I bring a lot of understanding of what it's like to do this work in the South, in a state like Louisiana, in a state like Georgia. And I also think that one of the things that I bring to whatever position I have is the idea of hope, that we can do this here. And I want to be a part of bringing what I have to offer to bear, and working with others to bring what they have to offer to bear, to really make substantive change in how we as a party function, in how we support our candidates, and how we support our Democratic voters in this state, how we build a sense of community, and how we just really make this state be the state we know that it can be, to the benefit of all Louisianans. And so I'll stop there. I could talk more about my qualifications and other things, but I'll stop there, and I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has.
All right, Sadie, I see your hand was raised. Go ahead.
Always. I've always got something to say. So that's really awesome. Thank you for sharing your experience, your background. I'm really excited hearing that. My question would be, what kind of changes do you have in mind to help and support candidates? Because that's a real big problem we have in Louisiana right now. And so I'm just curious about what are your thoughts? What are your ideas in that realm?
Sure. So I have lots of ideas on this part, but one of them is that I feel that it's sort of one of the responsibilities of the Democratic Party of Louisiana to support candidates to build a bench, right? So one of the ideas that I've had for a very long time is that, we should be supporting folks to put themselves out there to run, right? The number of open seats that we had this last year was insane. It's absolutely insane. Why can't the Louisiana Democratic Party give $5,000 and a plan to someone to run a campaign, even if they like the numbers are stacked against them, even if gerrymandering says, okay, really Democrats aren't going to win here. But what it does is it gives folks a chance to be a part of a dialogue, right? To hear other ideas, to have someone to say, you know what, I'm going to come out and I'm going to vote for that person, right? And when they come out and vote for that person, they're probably going to vote for other folks, you know, up and down that ballot. It also helps get people used to running. It gives them experience in running. When I was in Georgia, I ran a lot of these races in places where we couldn't win, and we went in knowing we couldn't win, but that wasn't the point. And a number of them went on to, you know, serve on city council and serve on their county commission, and you know, and then eventually, as demographics changed and lines changed, served in the state house. Like, all of these things are possible, but it started in just getting out there and encouraging folks to run. Right? We need to have more training for candidates and how to run campaigns, and training for folks to be able to run those campaigns, and just, you know, on and on. There's so much we can do to build a bench. There's so much we can do to train candidates and to get candidates out there and to give people a reason to come out and vote.
I love everything you said. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, I see Don raise his hand next.
Hello, Paige. How are you?
Hey, Don. Good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. What exactly do the jobs of the Secretary of the DSCC consist of?
So it's a pretty simple position. It's about you know, keeping the notes from the meetings, you know, and basically making sure. And I'm not sure how readily available the meeting minutes are. On another board I serve on, one of the things that I've done continually is, and also when I served on the DNC, is keep my own notes and share those out, because I feel that, like, one of the things, and I think this is something that Sadie said, like, people are so confused and it's so hard to get information about what's going on, right? So making it more transparent, like what was talked about, you know, even there's the official minutes, but also I can do like an executive summary of minutes that I would be happy to share out with folks, to the DPECs, you know, to members of the DSCC, to other groups such as this and other aligned groups, just to make sure people know what's going on. So it's not the job in and of itself isn't a very complicated job. I'm hoping that in doing that, and in sort of like making all this more transparent and putting information out there, we encourage more people to get involved, but then also just having a seat on the table to help direct the leadership of where we can go as a party.
Thank you, Paige. Great question, Don. And I want to add, like, Paige, don't undersell the work, the secretary. I mean, that
I just, there's not a laundry list of things, but what I think, what are the roles is like keeping the information, but then also sharing the information. It's not just like, here are the minutes and put them away, right? Like, we need to make sure people have access to them. They know where to find them. They know, like, that people are using them. So yeah.
Yeah. Transparency is something that's really needs to change with the Democratic Party. All right. Thank you. All right, do we have any more questions from our members or board members? All right. Well, if anyone has any more questions for Paige, we can always circle back to Paige as well.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Paige. All right, Kathy, it's your show now.
Okay. Well, I would just like to say first, before I start about my race, is that the most important thing that I think Paige said was it would get her a seat at the table. And she has a lot of valuable experience and information that would help our executive committee innovate, do new things, and take new paths to bring our party forward. Just forward is needed. So I really hope we can all give our full support to Paige. If you're on DSCC, make sure you vote for her. If you're not on DSCC, talk to your DSCC rep and say, look, you know, you may not know Paige, but she comes with a wealth of information that we need at that table. And, you know, although she didn't win her DSCC seat, it was because she was running against an elected official in their own district, which is near impossible to ever accomplish. So we need her at that table. So yeah, I wanted to give my pitch for her before I give my pitch for me. Right. And she said she also was executive director of the Democratic Party of Georgia. Look, we can't pass on that wealth of knowledge. We really can't. So please encourage your people who are on DSCC to vote for her for secretary. And there hasn't always been transparency in terms of getting the information out at what happened at the meetings, and that's really important. So I always like to give the example in anything. I'm a lawyer. And I'm in our House of Delegates, which is our leadership, and I'm elected. I'm on to be honest, I've lost track of how many terms I'm on now. But I'm elected by my district to represent at our state bar meetings. And one of the things we do well is that our minutes are readily available. Our members can go online to look at them. And we don't have anything like that right now for the Democratic Party, and there's no reason we shouldn't. It should be easily accessible and finding. And in terms of why I'm running for parliamentarian, I will tell you, when I first ran for DSCC in 2020 for a full term, I was appointed in 2019 to a vacant seat and then ran in 2020 for a full term. I was wholly unprepared for what our dear President Joe Biden would call malarkey, the malarkey that was to follow. There's just been a whole lot of, it's been crazy. Honestly, it's been crazy. And I never would have understood how important the parliamentarian role is until I saw the parliamentarian who's been in action for the last 4 years, the destruction that he has created in our party, with the assistance and backup of the chair. The parliamentarian pushed through some new bylaws in March of 2022. And look, we needed new bylaws because the old ones, they were a mess. These are a bigger mess and created bigger problems than the prior ones ever did. And I'll give you some examples of what I want to see changed. One of the good things that they put in the new bylaws, I'll say there are a few good things. One of them is it automatically defines who is the chair of the bylaws committee. It's not up to the chair anymore. It used to be the chair who appointed that. Now it's whoever is elected parliamentarian automatically is in charge of the bylaws committee. So that's one of the good differences. One of the worst differences that they made in the changes in March of 2022, first of all, they didn't give us proper notice of the changes they were going to make. And a whole lot of members of the DSCC objected to rushing them. They're like, give us more time. We need to study them. We got 10 days notice with a whole set of new bylaws with no notation as to what changes were being made. And nobody had time to study every word and compare the two documents. But we were promised that within 30 days there would be a meeting and we would make any changes. Well, that was in March of 2022. We're in March of 2024, and 0 changes have been made or even proposed to the bylaws. And one of the worst things they did was create this just convoluted, insane endorsement process. And that endorsement process says that the executive committee makes recommendations about the endorsements for candidates that we endorse. That was always the case. They made recommendations. But now the bylaws say that if no other DSCC member nominates someone else, then the governing body, the DSCC, is stuck with whatever the executive committee recommended. It has no say-so in who we endorse. Okay, that's not a democratic way to do things at all. And it's been used and abused by our current chair to favor people she likes and sabotage Democrats she didn't like. And I'll give a concrete example. In 2022, Later, after those mess of bylaws were passed, we had an endorsement meeting where all our congressional people were endorsed pursuant to the bylaws, and we voted up and down the new bylaws. And then when we got to the Senate race, because the chair didn't like Gary Chambers and didn't want Gary Chambers to succeed, and he had been endorsed by the executive committee, which she didn't expect. She didn't think he would get the votes, but he did. So she suspended the bylaws in the middle of the meeting and stripped his endorsement and gave our committee the option of endorsing 3 of the candidates, him, Luke Mixon, and Sarita Stott, or endorsing no one at all. Yeah, Sadie, exactly. So first of all, when we do, one of the things I want to see done in the bylaws is no dual endorsements. We endorse one person, our strongest candidate, because every time the party has endorsed more than one person, we have lost. Every time. And I've looked back at the history of it in prior administrations. They endorsed Foster Campbell and Caroline Fayard in a dual endorsement. That's how we ended up with John Kennedy to begin with. And because we had a dual endorsement, we couldn't make up our mind. And so there was no guidance to Democrats at large as to who the party was behind. The other major thing that creates is when we stripped Gary of his endorsement, I say we, not we, the chair, he couldn't get national money that way. And, you know, when you're running against John Kennedy, who's got a war chest of millions of dollars, we've lost before the election day even it comes. So that makes no sense. So they sabotaged him, and they tried to sabotage Devontae Lewis, the public service commissioner, and they did the same thing with him. They stripped him. We were given a choice to endorse all 5 Democrats running for public service commissioner or none at all. And so we endorsed all 5, and then the party chair used party money to help fund Devontae Lewis's main competitor, the incumbent. That should never happen. And one of the other changes I'd like to see in the bylaws is that the party chair cannot use party money or resources to advance one Democrat over another without the endorsement of the DSCC on that person. It shouldn't be the chair's personal favorite, which is what has happened over and over again with this particular chair. So that needs to be changed. And the endorsements in 2023, when there was an AG race and a treasurer race, Katie called the endorsement meeting for the executive committee 4 days before the DSCC meeting. Well, since the rule said unless a DSCC member nominates someone else, the body is stuck with whatever the executive committee does. So it was pretty clear to me that she set that meeting 4 days ahead for a reason, right? Yeah. So I took it upon myself and I sent in a letter, CC'd everybody on the committee, and I nominated every Democrat who was running in all the races we were voting in so that we could have a fair meeting. And and look, I had my preferences in those races too, who I was going to vote for, but I felt it's only fair that we give everybody a fair shot to come and convince us why we should endorse them. And we can't get candidate, and that's the only reason we had them all get to come speak. And, you know, I thought that was the day I decided I was going to run for parliamentarian, because I thought, here I am taking away from my law practice to send this letter and have my paralegal send to everybody on the DSCC just so we can have a fair meeting. This is absurd. It should not be incumbent on one DSCC member to be calendaring when she's at the executive committee meeting and sending in I'm like, this is insane. Why that was put in the bylaws to begin with, I don't know. Nobody's been able to explain that. But except for the fact that it's allowed the chair to abuse her position in terms of manipulating when things are scheduled in the executive committee. So I unfortunately, the bylaws have been ignored. They've been suspended. There are changes made to them that never should have been. And I'll give you another concrete example, is that it used to be you could be censured if you were a DSCC member if you publicly endorsed or supported a Republican if there was a Democrat in that race. They took it out of the bylaws. They removed it in those revisions because, you know, that's what we want our DSCC members doing, contributing and helping Republicans. If anybody can find any logic in that, please let me know, because I don't find any. I find it offensive, honestly. And because we should be building up our candidates, and the way endorsements have been handled because of these bylaws, it's discouraged people from running. I mean, I've said all along, we cannot get people to run if they're not assured that at the very least that Colby's telling me my time's running. I'm sorry. At the very least, we shouldn't be sabotaging our candidates. Prior to this administration, I used to hear from candidates, they felt like they didn't get enough support from the party. Now the cry is that they're being sabotaged by the party, and that has to stop. And it's going to take some very good, strong bylaws to put that in place, to do that. And that's why I'm running for parliamentarian. I ask you to, if you're on DSCC, to please vote for me. If you're not, please talk to your people on DSCC and ask them to, because we got 9 days left to try and reach 184 people, which nobody thought it was going to be that short amount of time. So thank you for listening, and I'm glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you. All righty.
Mine is just going to be really quick because I know we have to hurry on this. I'm going to be making calls for Kathy and Paige as well. I would just ask Kathy and Paige to please perhaps post on Louisiana Blue Team just maybe 2 sentences that you want to get across as your messaging, so that when I'm calling DSCC members on your behalf, I know what your message is, okay? So I'm going to do that for Kathy and Paige, and then any other people that we endorse. And I encourage everyone else to do the same. And if Kathy and Paige and any other endorsed EC candidates post that on our Slack, let's all call them, the ones we know, especially. Let's start with the ones we know are in our areas.
Fantastic. Thank you, Alana.
Thank you.
Like you said, I put your Louisiana Blue Team representative for your region in the group chat. We have all the DSCC members' contacts. So we are a source of information for you. Let us be there for you to help you, and let's get lobbying for our progressive candidates. All right, Sadie, I'm not going to steal the floor from you. It's your turn.
Hey, Sadie. I've been trying to call you, girl.
I'm sorry, Kathy. I needed a brain break. I've been spending my Wednesdays in Baton Rouge in sessions, and
yeah, I can't even imagine how mind-frying that is.
Yeah, so I've just kind of stepped away from everything and have been spending all of my time outside, which is why I look like a hot mess right now. Okay, so first of all, Kathy, thank you. I love what you're saying. I love that you are pointing out where the problems are right now and how those problems came to be. One of the things that I feel is extremely important is gaining the trust of voters for Democrats, because that's a big problem. And now I know where the root of that problem is. So I'm really excited that you want to fix this. Now, as far as candidates go, I don't know how many people in here know this, but I would love to run to unseat Clay Higgins. Okay. And I've been trying my best to do what I can, as I can. I reached out to the state party. And I have to say, the wind was really sucked out of my sail. I didn't expect a whole lot of support right now, just because it's a real hot mess up there. We've got new DSCC folks, DPECs, all this stuff, like, you know. And so I set my bar pretty low. But when I was told that the state does not help with resources for a campaign team, the state does not help with any kind of fundraising, I have to come to the table with these things basically in hand already, before I can even approach the state. Now, some of that I do understand, because if you want to run, put your own skin in the game, right? But it's also very exclusionary, because I'm also a stay-at-home mom because I choose to homeschool my child. My background is in education. I have a master's degree in education. I even have some hours going toward a PhD. I'm a highly educated, intelligent person that has worked out there in the world, but my child's education is important. And so I've made the sacrifices that I can to be her teacher. So that does limit our finances. We're one income home doing the best that we can. I'm running Pro-Choice with Heart. That's a grassroots organization. And so that's my skin in the game there as well. So it was very disheartening, and kind of another blow that I've had to kind of step back and kind of reassess and get my grounding. So my question is, I said all of that to say, my question is, what kind of rules, what kind of laws and bylaws, what kind of changes do you see so that people like me don't get deflated before we even have a real chance to even give a go?
Well, there definitely needs to be encouragement of candidates, and what I've seen happen with the endorsement process is the opposite. I don't know how you, and I'll give a concrete example of a candidate from last year who has been very public about it. Britt Condolfi, who ran for state senate, who I feel was a very awesome candidate. We were blessed to have her running as a Democrat. She was actually recruited by the party to run, and then sabotaged by the chair and the executive director. And so there needs to be some rules in place as to, one of the things that needs to be fixed in the bylaws is there's a lot of confusion about, for example, Britt was endorsed by all three. They leave the endorsement process to the parish DPECs. Britt was endorsed by all three of her parish DPECs in her district, and yet could not represent or hold herself out as to the endorsed candidate of the Democratic Party, but the way the bylaws are currently written. That needs to be fixed, because that does make a difference to people. I am the endorsed candidate. You know, she should have been able to say that. She should have been able to do that. And that needs to be, they've created kind of a muddy mess of who has to endorse, if it's multiple parishes. It was a little complicated before, but they made it more complicated and more difficult. And in that instance, and she reached out to the party, and she couldn't get them to help her. And look, Britt asked them, well, at least you could send an email on my behalf to our mailing list and our donor list. I mean, because look, there's no money right now, okay? Because Katie has not done a good job of fundraising or being a good steward of what resources we do have. And so one of the things that she asked for, she's like, it doesn't cost anything to send an email. Can you email? Nope, wouldn't even do that for her. Well, okay, that's not acceptable, you know. So, and we have to have clear cut in our bylaws as to who can hold themselves out as the endorsed candidate. Because in her race, after she was endorsed, somebody else was brought in, or, because look, we see this a lot in local elections. Some ringer candidate is paid by the Republicans to get in the race. I don't know if y'all have seen it in y'all communities. This happened in Lafayette more than once. Where all of a sudden somebody registered as a Democrat is running against another Democrat. But, you know, that registered Democrat is, you know, is supporting Jeff Landry. So, okay, they're not really a Democrat. Okay. So we don't want a position where we say we can't take a side which one. Well, the DPEC should be able to endorse one of those, and they could at least hold themselves out. And again, the bylaws are a mess right now on that issue and have to be clarified. One of the other things that's a mess is defining the caucus and the role of the congressional district caucuses. They were a mess in the bylaws before, and they changed one word. They changed an and to an or an or to an and. I don't remember, but that's all they did with them. They didn't fix them. And the caucus part is very important because that's who supports your local candidates and helps them. And so that's definitely something that needs to be addressed in the bylaws.
I agree. Thank you so much. I appreciate both of you. And I'm on DSCC and I'm voting for both of y'all.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you, Sadie, for an amazing question. Kathy, I do have a question for you as well. There's been a lot of tension between the executive committee and the rest of the DSCC board. At times, it's felt the rest of the DSCC members have been disenfranchised by the bylaws and by the actions of the executive committee and the chair. How, as the possible upcoming parliamentarian, do you plan on changing the bylaws in order to reintegrate that relationship and partnership between the executive committee and the rest of the DSCC members?
Well, our bylaws say that we are the governing body of the party, and we are. We're elected. I'm elected in my district. Luckily enough, I didn't have to run a race this time, but I had a very contested race 4 years ago. So my district chose me to represent them. And we've been disenfranchised by actions that just give all the power to the executive committee and or the chair. And unfortunately, what's happened is there hasn't been enough pushback by the current executive committee to hold the chair accountable. And they've just kind of checked out. There hasn't been a quorum on an executive committee meeting, which it happens once a month, all of 2024 so far, and much of 2023. They don't even have a quorum. They've just checked out. And look, I don't believe in signing up for a role or a responsibility unless I'm going to do it. You know, I'm going to do that. I just don't believe in that. I don't believe in collecting titles or whatever. Like, if you're going to run for it, do the job. Or don't run. Nobody makes you run. You know, so I think a lot of that's going to has to be fixed in the bylaws. There never should have been a revision that gives the executive committee the power to endorse candidates and shut out the DSCC. Look at that 2020 meeting where they did that to Gary and Devontae. There was an older DSCC member who got up and she said, last I checked, this was the Democratic Party. This doesn't seem very democratic to me. Like in the past, the candidates came and they spoke and they got a chance to tell us why we should vote for them, and then we'd vote for endorsements, but none of this is very democratic. And I'm like, amen. Because they didn't even let the candidates speak at the 2022 endorsement meeting. It was, it was insane. But all those things desperately need to be fixed. No matter who the chair is going into this, because it's allowed the chair to abuse the process.
All right. Thank you, Kathy. All right. I see we are at we have 6
Do you want
minutes.
me to answer the one in the chat?
Yes, ma'am. That's what I was about to say. Go ahead and do that one.
Okay, so Jennifer is asking, was Katie planted by the Republicans? It's a common thing for people to say that. And look, the last 4 years have been hellacious for us on DSCC, so I don't want to in any way sound like I'm defending Katie Bernhardt, but the only thing I will defend her on, the only thing, is that she wasn't planted by the Republicans. She is delusional enough, and I'll say this, I don't care if it's public, she's delusional enough to think she's a real Democrat, okay? She believes she's a Democrat, and she would argue that to her core that she is, because her daddy was a Democrat and she used to campaign with him, so she's a Democrat. But she doesn't really care about Democratic values, okay? Yes, Dixiecrat, Alana. No real Democrat would have been seen at Jeff Landry's recent fundraiser in DC, and yet the chair of our party was at Jeff Landry's fundraiser. So she thinks she's a Democrat, and she's always been a registered Democrat, as far as I know, but she doesn't actually think like a Democrat.
All right. I see Jennifer had her hand raised.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jennifer Bondi. I was just elected as an at-large member of the DPEC in St. Tammany. I've never run for anything in my life. I've been scared to speak in public forever. I've I've gone to counseling. I have medication. I'm doing it for my job. I work for St. Tammany, for Habitat for Humanity St. Tammany West as a director of homeowner services. And I have 3 kids. I have a 19-year-old son and twin daughters that are 14. And I'm so scared, y'all. I know that you are too. I mean, I feel it. Like, I'm ready. Like, I feel like we're like the last hope, like, what is going to happen? And so I just want to thank every one of you for taking the time out to just even be here. And then, all this energy that you have, Kathy and Paige, like, wow, I'm just so impressed. And like, sometimes it feels lonely. I know you've been there. I'm sure you have here in Louisiana, but thank you. And I'm, so happy to be here on this call.
We're happy to have you, and we're all lonely together.
Thank you.
All lonely in our little corners.
Well, you know what? I think that's the thing that I have hope about, because every now and then little registered Republicans come up to me and they tell me that they feel like they're not, that maybe they're more moderate than they thought. And then I feel like doors are opening in that way, because they're scared too, because this shit is crazy. So
yeah,
hopefully that's a movement.
Yes, ma'am. And that's really it. I mean, it kind of goes back to what Sadie mentioned about education. I mean, propaganda is so strong, and a good propaganda tool is getting people not to think in depth about a subject matter. And when we start making people think, start educating people, it makes people like, oh, wait, maybe I wasn't that way. Maybe I am more moderate. And that is all what Louisiana Blue Team is really about. Again, is educating the voters and energizing them. And we have a good base right now, a strong Louisiana Blue Team base right now. And I'm so excited again for all you guys who are here. I see Don, he raised his hand. So let's get to him real quick.
Hello, Kathy.
Hey, Don.
What exactly do the authority do the parliamentarian have in regards to like changing the bylaws? Do you have to rely on the entire executive committee or the DSCC members as a whole, or like, that's the question.
Okay. Good question. The parliamentarian now under the bylaws is automatically the chair of the bylaws committee. And so there will be a bylaws committee formed. People will express interest in that. And then whoever is elected chair will have the power to make those appointments to the committee, which is why we need a good chair. And then that committee will look at any revisions that need to be made. And then to make a single revision or other revisions, it would need to go before a full vote of the DSCC. And I can assure you, if I'm elected, it will go to the full vote of the DSCC with proper notice and proper indication of what's being changed and why it's being changed. There won't be this rush job, let's sneak it in there in 9 days and not tell anybody what we're changing, like happened this term, because that's exactly what happened. And it needs to be above board. So yeah, it would go through the committee, and then it would go to the full vote. And I can tell you, there were members of the bylaws committee who have said at meetings, at executive committee meetings, at the DSCC meeting last summer, they can't get the parliamentarian to meet with them anymore to look at they had a whole slate of revisions they felt needed to be made, but he refuses to call a meeting. And so they can't make any revisions. And now it's too late for that, because now it's a whole new DSCC. And, when your own committee's calling on you to have a meeting so you can finish the process. And that parliamentarian who refused to meet with his own committee is now running again. That's who I'm running against. So, yeah, he's running again. So, so we can't have that for a whole other 4 years, people. No, we just can't. So.
Great question, Don. That was a very good, thought-provoking one.
Since, just real quick, we got to get everybody on board to get as many Democrats we can get elected, because everybody needs to check out that Project 2025. Yeah. All right, that's all.
Thank you, Michael. All right, thank you, everybody who came out tonight. This has been a great introduction to Louisiana Blue Team. I think it really highlighted who we are as an organization. We are an activist. We are here to celebrate one another, uplift one another. If you want to run for a federal campaign, let us back you up. Let us help you with it. If you want to run a local one, we're here for you. We also are thinking of active ways of engaging you guys. So if you want to be a part of the new podcast series, please reach out to me. We want you guys to be on it. Come, let us drive out to you. Louisiana Blue Team hits the road to your neighborhood. We'll come with you. We'll walk with you. We're here to engage with you and empower each and every one of you. Real quick, I see Alana had her hand raised.
I just quickly want to say, everyone on here, if you are not already subscribed to Louisiana Blue Team News, go to LA Blue Team News, and then where it says subscribe, please just put in your email address, and then any updates or any new endorsements or anything like that, you will receive it in your inbox. Also, you're all here because you're all full members of our caucus, and as members, you all have a right to write for our blog as well. So if you have anything that you want to write or send to our blog or a video, just send it over to us at Louisiana Blue Team at outlook.com. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Great job, Colby.
Oh, thank you, guys. You guys have been wonderful. I don't want to keep you guys any later because I know you guys are very busy. We got a lot of ground to cover, but reach out to us. Our contact is in this chat. This will go up on our blog, on our YouTube page, so you'll have it there. Well, that's everything, everybody. You have a good night, and stay tuned for our upcoming endorsements for DSCC.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening.
Thanks.